Hello, I'm James, and this is an informational program, and this is Ryan, my co-host. Ryan was quite literally born yesterday.
Hi, I'm Ryan.
Through a process we cannot fully disclose for legal reasons, Ryan came into being yesterday, and he has no idea what's going on. He, again, through a process we cannot fully disclose, has complete knowledge of the Oxford English Dictionary as well as general sentence structure, and thus will understand almost everything I say, but will have no idea of the connotative meanings that we colloquially toss around about in our day-to-day. Isn't that right, Ryan?
I'm not totally sure of what that last part meant, but I'm ready to learn.
Earlier this year, California lawmakers passed a bill banning straws in sit-down restaurants unless the straw was specifically requested. Large corporations like Starbucks, the Marriott hotel chain, and American Airlines also followed suit. This move by California and company has led many to believe that the United States is taking a big step forward in fighting back against pollution.
But why? Straws are so fun.
Well, Ryan, straws are made up of plastic, but these plastic straws aren't recyclable. That means that 99% of straws that are made up of this material are going to be in a landfill for the next few millennia. I mean, straws really aren't that big of a deal. And yes, while it's nice that companies and states and others are making small efforts like this, in the long run, the ban can begin to look more like a PR move than the actual pursuit of reform and change. There are far more damaging plastic pollutants out there than plastic straws. Plastic straws, which are a widely used tool in the disabled community, who find it far less tasking to drink from a straw than through traditional drinking methods. However, Coca-Cola bottles, or rather Coca-Cola and its subsidiaries bottles, are a problem that needs to be addressed immediately. Coca-Cola is in fact the biggest plastic polluter in the world.
So, plastic waste is bad, right? I guess I don't completely understand what you mean by fighting back against pollution.
Well, Ryan, human beings are very wasteful. Americans in particular create an excess of waste because we buy and produce a lot of things that don't get used, reused, or recycled. And while things like plastic bottles are usually recyclable, only about 23% of those bottles do get recycled in the US.
Then why do we use plastic? How come corporations don't reuse the bottles they already made? And why wouldn't restaurants just use non-disposable straws that can be washed and reused? They could even do the same things with their bottles.
You have unintentionally segued perfectly into two important topics.
Awesome!
First of all, restaurants don't use bottles. Usually, they use higher quality plastic cups. They wash and rewash between customers' usage. And the concept of having a straw that you leave in your depleted drink at the end of a meal, or even a straw built into and adjoining the aforementioned cup, is not out of the realm of possibility. That was actually a very good idea, Ryan. Here's an avocado.
Thanks!
Oh, maybe I didn't think into this. Get him an apple or something. I don't want to get him a knife. Better. In regards to your initial point about why corporations use plastics instead of reusable bottles, they actually used to, but they don't anymore. From the early 20th century and all the way up until 2012, when Coca-Cola closed down its last bottle return station in Minnesota, all the major soda manufacturers had a bottle refund program that incentivized consumers to bring their glass bottles back to the manufacturers, and glass bottles were always the source of transportation for soda. And they would get a few cents in return. This program saved millions of bottles from being sent to landfills for decades, but the last bottle refund program for the US, as I said, has been discontinued.
So, why don't they just bring it back?
Well, Ryan, the production of cheap plastic bottles is just that, cheap. It's remarkably inexpensive to make plastic bottles and therefore highly lucrative, and glass bottles don't share that quality. However, glass bottles have maintained a certain iconography in the Coca-Cola advertisement world. Santa himself is seen drinking from one in all of their Christmas advertisements. So Coca-Cola is obviously aware that people love glass bottles and that it would be better for the environment to produce them and reuse them, but they make an active choice not to. Because money.
Because money?
Because money.
I think I understand, but I don't feel right about all this. Don't corporations care about pollution and how that's affecting the planet or their customers? Or at least something besides money? If I owned Coca-Cola, I certainly would.
That's very good of you, Ryan. But no, they really don't. At least the large megacorporations don't appear to. Yes, they're willing to concede on small things like plastic straws, but straws hardly make a dent on any billion-dollar company's bottom dollar. If anything, companies are probably saving money by not buying the straws in the first place. Unfortunately, for every being that lives on the planet Earth, corporations' movements towards sustainability in the United States in particular are almost never about environmentalism, but rather about good publicity and making more money.
Wow. This is really difficult to process. I finished my apple and I'm still hungry. Can I have a banana or something?
Actually, you won't want to eat that.
Why not?
It's a Chiquita banana. You've never heard of the Banana Massacre. Well, back in December of 1928, Chiquita Brands, formerly known as the United Fruit Company, may or may not have massacred 3,000 of their own workers in Colombia for striking and attempting to unionize. And the reason this is so suspicious is while there is no physical damning evidence that the United Fruit Company commanded this assault, in more recent years, Chiquita Bananas has been repeatedly connected to paramilitary groups in Colombia, having made settlements up to $25 million with the U.S. Department of Justice in relevant cases. Chiquita also has a reputation for exposing its workers to highly toxic pesticides and using a private militia to intimidate workers.
Well, that's bad. But at least things like Coca-Cola and apples and bananas nourish my body and feed starving people all over the world. That makes me feel a little bit better about all this. Yes, the atrocities that may or may not have been carried out by Chiquita Brands and the wastefulness of humanity makes me unhappy, but as long as people are being fed and are healthy, then everything balances out. In a way.
Well...
What?
Well, yes, on the surface, apples and bananas are good for you. The people and corporations who produce them often use pesticides and weed killers that affect the cleanliness and sometimes the healthiness of those foods. And Coke is terrible for you and can literally be used to effectively clean corrosion off your car battery. It should not be consumed by any human being trying to stay in any kind of optimal physical health. As a matter of fact, who gave him that?
Why are you telling me all of this? It's just making me feel worse. Everything you say is just bad news on top of bad news.
Well, Ryan...
Don't Ryan me. Just be honest.
It's important to be educated about the world that you've so briefly lived in. I'm sure that you have so many more questions, but you're growing more and more afraid to ask them because it feels like the world is getting worse and worse the more you learn. And there's a phrase that we have. It goes, ignorance is bliss. But I don't believe that bliss is what the world needs right now. The world needs information. It doesn't need fake news.
Wait, fake news? I don't know.
Not today, Ryan. Not today. The world needs to be educated. Through education, we can find this sought-after bliss through enlightenment. The evasion of concrete knowledge is not a sign of freedom, it's a sign of fear, and this is an understandable time in history to be afraid. But we can't, as human beings, be dominated by fear. We must learn and overcome.
I get it. You told me about how we used to have a glass bottle return service, so I could mourn the loss of that service, but so I could know and be more responsible with my consumption and use of plastic bottles. You're teaching me reasons I need to take action, not things I should be idly upset about. I feel a lot better. Thank you, James. I know I still have a lot to learn, but I think my journey towards becoming more informed about the more horrible things on Earth so I can become a better, more knowledgeable person that takes action in their life rather than sitting by feeling sorry for the world.
I'm glad. But for now, Ryan, you've learned what you needed to learn. Bring in the next one.